The film begins with this powerful goddess named Deji. She's up to no good, trying to create these 9 rivers that could wreck the human world. But guess what? Her plans get messed up when a tough warrior called Yang Jian and his teacher, Yuding, show up. They're here to stop her and save humanity. Now there's a big showdown between them. Yang Jian isn't as strong as Deji, who's like a goddess and all. Yuding realizes they're getting overwhelmed, so he tells Yang Jian to break the 9 rivers formation while he takes on Deji. Soon after, Yang Jian goes for it, but then Deji pulls off a fiery spell to stop him. It looks like he's gonna get knocked down by the fire, but he hears his teacher asking for help from within the flames. Afterward, Yang Jian tries to escape, but it's tough. He keeps bouncing around and falling, unable to get out of that fiery mess. Then, after that crazy instant, Yang Jian wakes up in a room all of a sudden. When he steps out, he notices a bunch of folks from the town gathered up. They're doing some kind of ceremony for a goddess. While this is happening, a group of guys shows up with a stretcher, which they'll use to carry the stuff people are giving as offerings. Now there's this girl named Chan Yu, who's supposed to be an offering for a god, but her brother, Neza, steps in and stops it. He's not cool with how the locals are always sacrificing people because they worship a goddess. He gets fed up and starts attacking the goddess's followers. And you won't believe it, but that stretcher those guys were carrying suddenly turns into a huge, scary monster, freaking everyone out. In the middle of all the craziness, Chan Yu is trying to shield a little kid from the monster's attack. At that time, Yang Jian sees all this and jumps into action. He fights the monster, using some power that comes from a necklace he's wearing. After a big battle, he finally manages to defeat the monster and save the day. Then, after all the craziness settled down, the big shot of the tribe, Zhang Ziya and Neza's dad, they both walk up to Yang Jian and Chan Yu, the ones who survived that monster attack. Back then, Ziya got really mad at his son for messing with the goddess and causing trouble in their area. Meanwhile, this person named Junkie, who's like Ziya's right-hand guy, spots the necklace Yang Jian is wearing. Then he quickly tells Ziya about it, and when Ziya sees the necklace, she recognizes the symbol on it. Shortly after, she invites Yang Jian over to her place. Meanwhile, at Ziya's house, she explains that the symbol on Yang Jian's necklace is kinda like a sign from an old story. The story goes that a god from the sky will come and rescue the people from their tough times. There, Ziya believes in this story and thinks Yang Jian might be that god from the tale. So, she gets down on her knees and asks him for help to save her suffering folks. But guess what? Yang Jian isn't some sky god. He's just a regular human, and he's in the area for different reasons. Then, without really listening to what Yang Jian was saying, Ziya pulled out a painting. This painting showed a goddess that the folks in the area usually worship. And get this, when Yang Jian looked at it, he saw a painting of Deji, the one who wants to wreck the human world. Finally, Yang Jian put 2 and 2 together. He realized all those people who were getting sacrificed for Deji were being used as fuel for those 9 rivers she's trying to create. So he decides he's gonna help Ziya take down Deji. But there's a catch. Regular weapons won't work on a goddess. They need some divine weapon. Shortly after, Yang Jian spills the beans about how to get that weapon. He's got to take on a challenge at this place called the Lightning Wind Pagoda in a land called Jindio. And guess what? Chen Yu wants in on this action. She's got some special eyesight that'll make finding the pagoda easier. So Yang Jian says, okay. Then, while they were on their way to the Lightning Wind Pagoda, Yang Jian suddenly aimed his spear at a tree. Surprise, Neza, who had been secretly following them and hiding behind the tree, finally came out. So Chen Yu asks him what he's doing there in the woods. He comes up with a fib, saying he just happened to pass through the forest. Then, after that little incident, Nija joins Yang Jian and Chan Yu on their trip to the pagoda. After a pretty long journey, the 3 of them finally get to the land of Jindio, but no pagoda in sight. So they decide to keep moving forward. And when it gets dark, they come across an old lady by a river who's making lanterns. They think about buying one to light their way at night, but the old lady says these lanterns can show a person's deepest desires. However, Mizha doesn't buy it though. He decides to test it out and looks into a lantern. Crazy thing is, he sees his dad passing on the tribe chief role to him. At that time, Chan Yu gets curious and gives it a shot too. She ends up seeing Yang Jian in her lantern, but she's too shy to spill the beans. Meanwhile, Yang Jian looks into one of the lanterns as well, but he shakes his head, thinking the lanterns are just showing nothing important. Then, after getting that lantern, the gang kept on moving until they reached this pretty big inn. They walked in and saw a bunch of other adventurers who were also hunting for the Lightning Wind Pagoda, just taking a break there. At that time, they thought, why not rest a bit too? Soon after, Mizha waved down a maid, a really good-looking one, and she came over to help them out. But the maid seemed kinda interested in Yang Jian, like trying to flirt with him or something. Seeing that totally bugged Chan Yu because she was feeling jealous of the maid's attention to Yang Jian. And when the maid handed Yang Jian a glass of wine, Naza, who was totally smitten by her looks, asked for some wine too. But Yang Jian, he caught on that everything in the inn was just some illusion caused by the adventurers' repetitive actions ever since they got there. So he turned down the wine. He got an idea and asked Chan Yu to use her special sight to see what the maid really looked like. And guess what? Just as he suspected, that beautiful maid was actually a mouthless demon. With the jig up, the demon spilled the beans about the real state of the inn, and then went all out against Yang Jian. This demon was strong and kept throwing attacks that had Yang Jian struggling, but Chan Yu, she saw what was going on and stepped in to help. Using her special sight, she figured out the demon's weak points and came to Yang Jian's rescue. Pretty soon after, Chan Yu spilled the beans that the demon's weakness was in the hairpin it was wearing, and when she was about to grab it when the demon attacked her. Like lightning, Yang Jian swooped in and saved her. At the same time, Meiji saw his chance and grabbed that hairpin, taking down the demon. Meanwhile, while Yang Jian was busy protecting Chan Yu, he noticed a red dot appearing above her eyes. This triggered his memory about something his teacher had said regarding a sun sign that would show up. With those words in his mind, Yang Jian tried to calm down by practicing his martial arts. A little while later, Chan Yu came up to Yang Jian, saying thanks and giving him a bamboo wish. She wanted all of Yang Jian's dreams to come true, but he turned down her gift, explaining that he's set on becoming a god and putting aside human desires so he can beat Deji. This left Chan Yu looking sad, knowing they couldn't be together. The morning after, Yang Jian and the crew kept moving until they finally got to the Lightning Wind Pagoda. When they walked into the first floor, they bumped into a dwarf, and out of the blue, this dwarf turned the room into a bamboo forest. Then the dwarf told them they had to play a game to move on to the next floor. In this game, they had to grab a sword from the dwarf's back, but if they got caught, they'd turn into stone. As the game got going, Yang Jian and Neja teamed up to get that sword. Meanwhile, Chan Yu just hung back, watching them play. With some great teamwork, they managed to grab the sword and open the portal to the next floor. But surprise! Just when they were about to step into the portal, the dwarf broke his word and came after them. Soon after, Neja stepped up and sacrificed himself, turning both him and the dwarf into stone. Reluctantly, Yang Jian and Chan Yu went on to the next floor without Neja. On the second floor of the pagoda, they walked into a room full of mirrors and met a witch guarding the floor. This witch had a challenge for them that they had to paint her true form. If they nailed it, they'd move to the next floor. But if they messed up, they'd be stuck in the mirrors forever. Before they started painting, Yang Jian asked Chan Yu to use her special sight to check out the witch's true form, and then they got down to painting. Once their painting was done, the witch was pretty surprised. She saw that they painted themselves, which was quite clever, since her real form was a mirror. So, after successfully tackling the challenge on the second floor of the pagoda, things got a bit crazy. But then, the room started falling apart. At that time, Yang Jian urged Chan Yu to hurry to the portal on the next floor, but she got stuck halfway. So, she told Yang Jian to let go of her hand and keep going without her. Soon after, Yang Jian continued on to the very last floor of the pagoda, Here, he had to take down a guardian to get a divine weapon. Before the fight began, this guardian gave him a choice of divine weapons, but no matter how hard he tried, Yang Jian just couldn't beat the guardian. He ended up flat on the ground. Meanwhile, Chen Yu, who was stuck in the mirror room, ran into the witch again. Thanks to her special sight, she'd seen the witch's true form before, and in return, the witch showed Chen Yu her true self as a gift. On the flip side, Yang Jian was in a tough spot while battling the guardian, even though he tried every divine weapon the guardian had offered. He thought for a bit and then decided to embrace all his feelings and desires. This gave him the strength to get back on his feet, fight the guardian, and snatch his spear. With newfound confidence, Yang Jian finally defeated the guardian, transforming his spear into a divine weapon. Not long after Yang Jian obtained the divine weapon, Chen Yu suddenly showed up with a fresh power. It was the ability to use yin and yang mirrors. Meanwhile, Neza, who everyone thought had turned to stone, also joined the gang, carrying the whip sword he'd taken from the dwarf. Then, as they regrouped, the lightning wind pagoda began crumbling. So, the trio dashed out, thanks to Chen Yu's teleportation ability. Outside, they found Deji waiting for Yang Jian. Soon after, a massive battle kicked off between the goddess and the three warriors. Despite teaming up and wielding divine weapons, they still couldn't take down Deji. Then, when Yang Jian was struggling, Deji seized the chance to attack him. However, Chen Yu wasn't about to stand by and watch. She rushed to block Deji's strike, but unfortunately, she couldn't hold up against the goddess' attack and ended up severely hurt. On a different note, Neza, seeing Chen Yu hurt, got really mad and attacked Deji with his whip sword. Meanwhile, Chen Yu passed away and revealed her true form, a fire spirit, before taking her last breath in Yang Jian's arms. At the same time, Neija couldn't keep fighting against Deji either. After getting hit by a bunch of attacks from the goddess, Neija died too. And before Yang Jian could get revenge for his fallen friends, something extraordinary happened. Chen Yu's spirit turned into fire and merged with him. Turns out, this woke up his third eye, and he transformed into a god known as God Erling. With his new godly powers, he easily smashed the 9 Rivers formation and took down Deji without much trouble. At that time, Deji got desperate and tried to call her sisters for help, forming a massive Azura statue. But even with that, she couldn't match the strength of Yang Jian, now the Erling god. Eventually, Yang Jian shattered the giant Azura statue. In the end, a man who turns out to be Deji's teacher comes in to punish her and her sister. He locks them inside a painting as a consequence of their chaos. This teacher then leaves a message for Yang Jian, telling him to use his divine abilities to help humanity, and that's how the film wraps up. The moral lesson from this film is always double-check if your potential date is actually a mouthless demon before accepting their offer of wine and a romantic evening in a bamboo illusion forest.